Okay, this is it. This is my last race review of the year, and I'm so excited to get into this one because it was so much fun and definitely exceeded my expectations. But first, hey guys, my name is Janae. I make videos on cycling and bike commuting, and today I just wanted to do a review of my most recent race in Tucson, Arizona. So first, I'll just give you guys like a quick overview of what this trip was. This was a race in November. It was held on November 18th, which was actually my dad's birthday. So this trip pretty much served double duty. It was a celebration of me completing my 4th Grand Fondo of the year, and also just to celebrate my dad's birthday. I rented a bike from a local bike rental shop that was there. I don't think they have a physical shop, but they store their bikes in storage near, I think, the Loop, which is Tucson's really long bike recreational path, I believe. This was pretty expensive. It was the most expensive bike rental that I've paid for this year, but there weren't many other options that were great. So this was pretty much exactly what I needed. They were super professional, really responsive whenever I needed anything or had any questions. And an added bonus was that they even set it up to where they could pick up my bike at the finish line once I finished the race. So I didn't even have to worry about taking it back to the hotel where I was staying at, or using the rest of my trip to figure out how to get back to the storage location to return the bike. It was very seamless, and I don't really have any other complaints about it. It's kind of a you get what you pay for type of thing, so more money meant a better service. But okay, before I start rambling too much, I want to go ahead and jump into the likes and dislikes like I have in the other videos. And first, I'll start with the dislikes for the Tour de Tucson. Okay, starting with number 1, which is terrible roads. Oh my gosh. I was not expecting this, but even my dad made a comment about it while we were just riding around in the rental car, is that their roads are pretty bad. Like, it's really rough shape. I don't know if it's because of the constant heat out there, but there were a lot of cracks, and not so many like huge potholes, but just a lot of cracks. So it was a lot of like rumbling and rough road, and I was concerned the days leading up to the race that that was what most of the roads would be like while we were out there on the bikes. And I would say closer into the city that was the case, but the further and further out we went, it did get better, but there were some spots that were still a bit shaky. So if you plan on doing this, I just recommend that you have some pretty good tires, and that they're inflated properly, and that you know how to change a flat just in case, because I just barely know how to do it. Okay, dislike number 2, the limited variety of snacks. Now, I will say that they did have a fair amount of snacks at all of the rest stops. So it wasn't like they didn't provide us with anything, but I have never eaten so many bananas in my life in one day. It was just nonstop. Bananas and orange slices and maybe some Oreos thrown in. I could not take it anymore. Like, I had my gels and my chews and all of that stuff, but that was also sugar, so it was just like this sugary taste in my mouth for so much of the ride that I was craving salt of any kind. Thankfully, towards the end, they did have some stops that had pretzels with big old things of salt on them, and pickles and pickle juice, so I was able to get a salt fix in there some way. But yeah, every stop had pretty much the same thing. So if you're someone who needs more variety, then I suggest packing that in your own stash and only relying on their stuff when you don't want to eat through all of yours too quickly. But yeah, I was kind of hoping for a little bit more variety, but I was still grateful that they had snacked. Okay, my third dislike was that you have to decide your route before you start. And I'm sure some of you are like, obviously that's what you do during registration. But what I mean by this was that leading up to the race, I realized that I wasn't as prepared as I wanted to be. I kind of felt like I could do the century, but was also feeling like I should maybe bump down a little bit just in case I couldn't complete the entire route. And I thought I could handle this the same way that I did in Denver, and if you haven't watched that video, go check that one out. I ended up switching routes in Denver, honestly unintentionally, but I was also able to make that decision for myself while I was out there, so I didn't have to change much or go sign up for something different. With this race, that wasn't the case. I did have to make it clear before I got out there on race day which one I was setting out to do, which I guess I kind of get because there was a lot of people, this race is timed, and they also have like a tracker thing on your like race numbers that you put on your bike, and the medal that you get when you finish is a different color depending on which route you signed up to do. Now, normally when I do these lists, I do 4 likes and 4 dislikes, but really this race was so much fun that I couldn't figure out a 4th dislike. So it's really more like 3, which I guess could be the dislike, is that I couldn't even out the numbers. I'm telling you, this was a really fun event. If you get a chance to do it, or even considering doing it, I say sign up. It was so much fun and really well executed, which is a great segue just to get us into the likes of all the things that I enjoyed about the race. Okay, so with that, we'll just jump into the likes, I guess. And my number 1 like was the great views. Oh my gosh, why did no one tell me that Arizona is so beautiful? Like, I just had no clue. I don't think I ever thought of the state previously. But yeah, the mountains were so amazing, and they were in view the entire time. We were, aside from the rain, we were pretty much blessed with beautiful weather. I think it was only about like 75-ish the whole time we were out there, and it was just amazing. Not as beautiful as Cape Town, so if you want to see some of those views, go check out that video. But this was beautiful in its own right, especially for something here in the US. Okay, my number 2 like for El Tour de Tucson was the Bike Expo. This was probably the best expo that I think I've been to. It was a pretty good size, and it was very organized. There was entertainment, there was food, there's lots of vendors, there's a lot of opportunities to grab things right before the race. There's not a huge variety, so make sure if you're particular, you have all the things you know you like beforehand. But if you need to grab socks or gels or even a jersey last minute, they have those things. A lot of it is different merch that you can get just to say that you did it. So I would say this was a pretty top-rated expo. Well done. My number 3 like for the race was the traffic management and support. I think they did a fantastic job of keeping cyclists separate from car traffic and making sure that everyone knew where to go. There was no confusion. They also had bike patrol, if that's the right term, but people out on bikes within the group of cyclists biking around with extra tools and I'm assuming first aid kits, just things to help people in their time of need. There were quite a few people who had flats, and they were able to pull over and go help them change a flat if needed. They had on, I think it was yellow jerseys or t-shirts or something on their bikes, so they were easy to identify. You didn't have to really wonder if this is a random person on the street or someone who was part of the event. So it was very clear to spot them. And there was even one time when I started to get pretty warm after the first 10 or so miles out there on the bike. So I pulled over for like 2 minutes to take off my sleeves, and somewhere in that amount of time or less, one of the bike patrol people was immediately over there asking if I needed help or any assistance. And so that just goes to show how they were on it when it comes to bike support. So I really appreciated that. Okay, this last one might be a little weird, but I feel like it helped a lot while I was out there. So I would say my last like of the race was that the rest stops were perfectly spaced out. The overall route and the terrain out there in general is pretty flat, so you're pedaling a lot on this race, which can get very exhausting very quickly. You pretty much was able to use all of the rest stops as my opportunity to stop and rest, as opposed to taking my own time while I was out there in between stops to do my own rest. Obviously, you should rest when you feel like you need to rest, but for me, making sure that I stayed on pace and on time with what I wanted to complete meant that I couldn't stop a bunch of times, but there was enough spacing between one rest stop to the next where I felt like, okay, this is a good time to stop, and it wasn't overrun with people, so I was able to get in and out if I only wanted to stop for a minute or two. But if I wanted to stay a bit longer, then it wasn't overwhelming or getting overcrowded to where there wasn't space to be there. Okay, so that was it. That was my review for the Tour de Tucson, and also my last review for the 2023, this little season I created for myself. This race was great, and I would highly recommend it to anyone who's a beginner with long distance races like myself. Like I said, it was way more beautiful than I expected. It was well supported, extremely organized, and just an all-around good time. I would definitely do this one again. I would go for the century just to be able to check that off the list, but overall, a really great event that was extremely well done and a whole lot of fun. Anyways, that's my review of Tour de Tucson. I hope this was helpful. If you're considering signing up for it next year, definitely do so. As always, I'll put the link to the race as well as any resources that I used that I thought would be helpful for someone who's maybe considering doing this next time. I think if you do it, you will not be disappointed. It was a lot of fun. This was the 40th anniversary of this one, so it was nice to get that big medal that said 40 on it. So yeah, definitely check this out, and I hope that you'll consider doing more of these races as I try to do more of these races and see more of what's out there on the bike. So pretty much since it's the end of the year, I won't be doing any more until maybe next year, and I haven't quite figured out which ones those are going to be yet, but I'll definitely make sure that I document them and provide as much information as I can to help anyone else who might be interested in doing more of these races in the future. So with that said, I just want to thank you guys for watching my video, and I will see you in the next one.